Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Bible Study Minute. Today we're taking a look at Esther chapters 5 through 7. And these chapters pick up right where we left off with Esther and Mordecai fasting and praying to the Lord, trying to figure out what they can do to save the Jewish people. And at this point, Esther finally has a plan, and she begins to seek the king's favor. And she is able to do this by inviting him and Haman to a banquet. And she does this on consecutive nights. And the king is pleased both times and gives her an opportunity to ask for whatever she wants. And on the second night, she finally answers and tells the king what she's asking for. But we'll hold on to that for a second, because what we also see here is Haman. And Haman is someone whose pride and discontent are continuing to fester and grow in these chapters. We see that every time he sees Mordecai, something just festers in him, and his anger continues to rise and burn within him. And as a result, he shares this with his friends and his wife, and they tell him to go and build gallows 75 feet high and have Mordecai hung on that at the king's request. And then, so what does he do? He goes to the king to ask this. And of course, we see the Lord beginning to intervene by giving the king a restless night. And at this restless night, he has the book of records read to him, where he finds out that he had not done anything for Mordecai for saving him from his assassination attempt. And because Haman's out there just kind of hanging around, waiting to ask the king this request, he's brought in and asked, what should the king do for the guy he wants to show a favor to? And then we again see Haman's pride continuing to bubble up, and he's thinking to himself, who would the king want to honor other than me? So he comes up with this grand scheme of what the king should do. And then once he's done, he's like, go do that for Mordecai, and you're the one that's going to go do it. And so he's having to go do that, and his friends eventually tell him that, yeah, this is the beginning of your downfall. And that's what we begin to see once Esther reveals what her request is to the king, which is to save her and her people. And once the king finds out who's responsible for this, which is Haman, he pleads for his life and is begging at the queen's feet, and as a result of this, he ends up being hung. So what is our takeaway from this? Ultimately, is to look at Haman and Haman's life, because the book of Proverbs tells us that pride comes before a fall. And then we look at Proverbs chapter 6, and we see that there are 7 things God hates, and one of those is arrogant eyes, which is another way to say pride, and then someone who sheds innocent blood, which is something else that Haman wanted to do, and feet that were swift to go towards evil. So those are 3 things that Haman is doing that God hates. And so often we do a lot of those things in our own life, especially when pride comes into play. So the takeaway for us is to check our hearts, see where we're prideful, and to ask the Lord to give us humility in those places so that we can walk in humility towards Him and towards others. Because we have to remember that all authority comes from God, and God is the one who gives it to us. And even with all the authority that we have, we could run the entire world, but we were still under God's authority. So we are always people under authority, and we have to remember that. And even the person who had the most authority, God Himself, came down to serve, not to be served. And that is the posture that we need to take. Not like Haman, who was just constantly walking in pride and in arrogance and hatred towards others. We need to walk in love, loving our neighbor, and always showing humility. So that's what I have for you today. And until next time, grace and peace.